And it allowed me to have this embodied experience, an experience in my body that bypassed the story I've been telling about myself for decades. And in one moment, I flipped the script.
Today's guest is a dear friend of mine, someone that I have had the pleasure to learn so much from and continue to learn so much from, and have also had the pleasure to co-create with and share life and see her journey of stepping more fully into her own aliveness, into her pleasure, into her radiance. And so I'm really excited to bring her today into the podcast to have a conversation on all things awakening our Muse. Her name is Alexi Panos. She is the best-selling author of 2 books, amazing books, and she's also the co-founder of the Bridge Method, the Bridge Workshop, and Extreme Leadership Workshop, Elementum Coaching Institute, which is an institute for coaches wanting to get certified, and also the co-founder of Awakening the Muse, an online container for women. She's also a philanthropist and humanitarian and has a non-for-profit called Epic. Now, within this conversation, we went deep into what the Muse really is and what it means to each of us and how to reconnect to that part of ourselves that is authentic, that is alive, that is open, that is connected to our bodies, what practices and tools we have been using to be connected to ourselves in a deeper way, and how this has impacted our lives and our relationships and everything in between. So I am really excited to share this conversation with you. We went deep, we went far. There are so many tools, distinctions, and practices that we share that will for sure be able to support you in upgrading your relationship with yourself, your relationship to yourself as a muse, and the way in which connecting to yourself can really transform each aspect of your life. So keep on listening as we dive right into it. Alexi, welcome to the Let Her Lead podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. And also, this happens to be the first episode we're recording for this podcast, everyone.
Hey, I get to be the first one.
Yes. Not just a guest. I'm actually recording all of my solos after this conversation, yes. But it so happened with our schedules, and so you are the very first member in the very first conversation we are having for this podcast.
I am so honored. It's so good. It's so good to be here. So good to chat with you. Yeah, I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And look, there's so much we know both that we could talk about for days and hours.
Yes.
But for this particular conversation, I would love to start talking or speaking about the Muse. And how to, first of all, what is the Muse, and how to allow the Muse to lead our lives. This podcast, Let Her Lead, is all about allowing that, the most true essence of ourselves, the most empowered version of ourselves, the most liberated, free, pleasure-led version of ourselves, lead the way in business, in relationship, in life. So I would love to hear what you've got to say about the Muse and how she's led your life.
Oh man, the Muse it's been such a journey back home to the self. And it's interesting, when I co-founded Awaken the Muse, which is our program, we called it that. My friend Emily and I called it that because her and I were in our own unraveling. We had met our own rupture. We had kind of around the same time, both just had a rock bottom in our life. And truthfully, it rocked us. Like, it rocked us to the core. And took away all of our strategies for safety, all of our strategies for feeling good and kind of staying above the fold. And what was left was the truth. And in that truth, we had to face off with all the parts of ourselves that we had betrayed, that I'll speak for myself, that I had betrayed, that I had dropped, that I had ignored, that I had gaslit, that I had pushed aside for the sake of putting others first. And what it did was it gave me this huge opportunity to go, okay, well, if all your strategies aren't safe anymore, what is safe? What is safety? Like, what is inherent safety? And I didn't know how to answer that at first. It's like, oh, I don't know, because I thought it was all this. I thought if I was useful to other people, if I was kind and nice and integrous, if I was significant in the world and gave back, like I was doing all the right things. Why didn't this work out for me? And what I recognize is safety is an inside job, and it's a nervous system job, and it's an essence job, and it's an expression job. And you can interchange safety with freedom, because until we're truly safe in our bodies, we're not free. And a lot of people want to say financial freedom and lifestyle freedom and time freedom, and all that's bullshit. Like, you can have all the surface ideas of freedom, but if you're not free in your body and safe in your body, you're not actually free. So as we're going on this journey, I'm starting to really come into contact with this part of myself that I hadn't really seen or been with or been close to since childhood. And it felt so free. It felt so innocent. It felt so pure. It felt so liberated. It felt so magnetic and alive and potent and fiery and fierce and all the things. It was the spectrum of all the things. And we started coming up with names like, well, what are you going to call this version? Because we would do these practices together, which is now our course. And she had a name for hers. And I said, I think mine, I'm just going to call the Muse, because the Muse to me, as we define the Muse, is someone that inspires, someone that elicits life force energy from us. And for me, that essence, that core part of me, it is my Muse. It is me. The Muse is me. But I call it the Muse because it reminds me that when I tap into that part of myself, the freest, most liberated part of myself, I'm an inspiration, not just for myself, but for the world. And when I am liberated and fully in my essence and fully owning my power and my weirdness and my magic and all of it, my pain, all of it, it's magnetic and it's fucking awesome. So it's like, that to me is the Muse. It's the purest, most potent part of our aliveness. And it's the part that unfortunately most women have stuffed so far down in our lives because we thought it's not safe to be her. It's not safe to be fully expressed in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I love being in proximity to this journey while you were emerging from this period of your life and creating this, and getting to come to some of the classes that you girls were going to, and getting to hear all of the exciting pieces that you were putting together for yourself first, that then now form a part of what you offer to the world. Because I was able to see, okay, this is a journey that you're in for yourself, to reawaken this within yourself, to reconnect and allow these aspects of you to be revealed for you first. Not even for relationship, not even for motherhood, not even for business, but for yourself first. And then to see how this has nourished every single aspect of your life, and then in turn so many women. It's so amazing and so inspiring. And I was just thinking, while I was hearing you talk towards the end, it took me back to Shakespeare for whatever reason, and to all of the poems and all of the great novels and all of the great songs and all of the words that have been created, inspired, and fought for women.
Yes.
And how we've always been a muse in so many ways to so many people. When we've been in our essence, when we think of the true essence of the feminine, it is a muse, it is inspiration, it is nourishment, it is art and creativity and flow. And there is so much of that we, in the pursuit of success and chasing, validation, approval, but also just money, achievements, quote unquote security, quote unquote control, the illusion of control.
Right.
In the chase of that, we've lost touch with that part of ourselves that is always and has always been amusing.
Yes.
Not just to ourselves, but to the world.
Yes.
Wars were fought for women.
Yes.
It's great pieces were created for women, or inspired by women.
Yes.
And we've lost touch of that. And then so we find a lot of the times women in relationships feeling disconnected, feeling unmet, feeling like they're not getting the depth of intimacy and love and attention and affection and sensuality and pleasure that they desire from and with their partners. And I can't help but think about this and the fact that we stopped being in connection with our own muse, and we forgot that we are a muse to ourselves. And then therefore started to call in scenarios and partnerships in our lives that reflected that back to us.
100%.
But we didn't feel like the muse anymore.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. It's where we live in a society where pleasure feels meaningless. It feels, the pursuit of pleasure almost feels like frivolous. Like, why would I do that? There's all these things happening in the world and life is so busy. And I know, like, I've got 4 kids, at one point under 4, you know, they're a year older now, but life was busy. Survival mode. It's like, okay, well, work and service, and I've got all these businesses and I serve all these people and I have these big containers and I've got 4 kids and I've got a huge community and there's all these people that I care for and love to care for and love to love, that it was so easy to put myself to the side, to put pleasure to the side, to put magic to the side. And I'm a very practical Virgo. It's like,
Yes, you
get
are.
her done. That's like very much my thing. Get her done. And for me, what I recognized was this fear of, if I drop the urgency of all these things, and I have a big life, like I just have one job. I have like 6 businesses, you know, it's like 4 kids, parents that I take care of. Like, I have a big life. If I drop any of that for the pursuit of pleasure and joy and magic, what will happen? You know, like I can't. It's not even a possibility for me to drop it. But you said something that's so true for me, is that in the pursuit of this muse, in the pursuit of my creative life force, in the pursuit of aliveness, in the pursuit of my intrinsic essence, I have not only nourished myself from a well that is ever flowing and infinitely abundant, but that nourishment has poured, substantially poured. It has flooded into my relationship with my husband, my kids, my community, my work, the people I serve, my nonprofit. Like, it has poured in a way that it's like, oh my gosh, this is great. It's like the thing I was looking for all along, that like never ending infinite flow of ideas and abundance and energy. And you're staying with me and you're like, how do you have all this energy? It's like, I am tapped into something else. It's not me. There's something else that's flowing through me, and it's life force energy. It's aliveness, and that is so potent, and you can't buy it. You can't get it with, you know, a blue check on Instagram. Like, you can't get it from anything worldly. It comes from within, and it also comes from up here. And our essence, to me, like the muse, is the life force energy from here that's tapped in and connected to the life force energy of everything. Yeah. And so when I'm connected to this power source, I'm unstoppable. Like, you can't fuck with me, you know? And it's like, that feels so good. And it has just completely rewritten the idea that the pursuit of pleasure is meaningless or frivolous, because it's not. It's actually the thing that we all want. We're all chasing money and success and power and influence and all these things because we want to feel alive. We want to feel like we fucking matter. Like we're here. Like, I am here. I did something with my life. Well, you get that by tapping into your aliveness. Full stop. You don't need any of that. That's just a bonus and a byproduct of being fully alive and being fully in your body.
Yeah, absolutely. And it speaks back to the fact that we as a society struggle with this. To me, speaks back to how conditioned we've been to live in our heads and not in our bodies. Because in our heads, what makes sense is, if I want this much success, then I need to do this many things. Yeah. And if the percentage that I get, the ROI of my effort is such, then I have to do 10 times more effort so that I can get the equivalent percentage of success of what I desire, right? So in our minds, it makes sense. It makes sense that we have to hustle. It makes sense that we have to work all the time, be online all the time, do everything out, energy out, energy out, energy out. It makes sense because it's a pretty simple equation, right? But when we start to live in our bodies, when we start to do the embodiment work, we start to realize that there is an intelligence that is higher than what our minds can actually comprehend, where things just make sense because I feel so. Yeah. Because my gut says so. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily make sense in my head. And maybe I don't have a strategy. I don't have a 5-10 year plan. I don't have an explanation, but I know in my body this is right or it isn't. Yeah. And when I start to prioritize that, this is what I've experienced in myself, but also, of course, with all of the women that I work with. When we start to prioritize that, we see that there's something we can just not necessarily explain or plan or strategize that's at play, that's always bigger than us. And in that, when we're playing in that realm, effort isn't needed in the same way we've known it. We don't need to hustle. We don't need to work as hard. It doesn't mean that we're not working. It doesn't mean that we don't put intention and attention and commit to the things that are important to us and show up for the things that matter. But what it means is that we don't need to do it in a way that is misaligned with our true nature.
Yeah.
And this is what we've learned.
That's right. We've learned that. And it's the inherent difference between power, internal power, versus force.
Yeah.
Right? Like force, I have to effort, I have to push, I have to hustle. I'm like literally like pushing a rock up a mountain, versus power is like coming into regulation, taking my time, slow and steady. And I've climbed mountains, right? So Mount Kilimanjaro, it's in Africa, in Tanzania. One of the phrases they say is pole pole, slowly, slowly, right? And I went with a crew of about 5 people. One of them was a young guy who was volunteering with us in Epic. And he was super athletic. Like he ran, he played basketball, he did all the things. So he was like, go, 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 go. Like he was trying to get to the top faster. They kept saying, pole, 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 slowly, slowly. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen. Like these guys clearly know what they're doing. I'm going to take my time. So me and the 4 others, we took our time. We enjoyed the sights. We enjoyed like the trees. There were monkeys. There's all these different layers of environment. We took our time. And he forced, he kept trying to push, push, push. He got altitude sickness. So we were almost up at base camp, which is a stop right before you hit the summit. And he had to get carried down on a stretcher because he got altitude sickness. And that's what force will do. Force will put your ass in a stretcher to be like, see, this is not how you do it. And the power was to just come back to center, like breathe, take your time, internally like source yourself. So as you're moving through life and being with your commitments, like, because again, I still get a lot of stuff done, but it's where I get it done from. There's no scarcity. There's no urgency. There's no overwhelm. There's no anxiety or hustle. It's like one breath at a time, one step at a time. What matters most right now? How can I be present to this? How can I experience pleasure while I'm writing emails? How can I experience pleasure while I'm creating the curriculum for this course? It changes everything. And it just reminds us that the destination is always going to be there, like always. And we hear this phrase, it's the journey, not the destination. But it really is. Like, it really is. Because if it was just the top of Kilimanjaro, where we were at, by the way, for all of 10 minutes, because the air is so thin up there that you can't even talk and you can barely breathe, we're up there for 10 minutes. It took 5 days to get there. If I made it all about the top, I would have missed 5 days of my life just trying to get to the top. And that's what most of us are doing in our lives. We're just trying to get to the top, try to get to the top, try to get to the top. And we miss the friends and family along the way. We miss our partnerships. We miss the sun shining. We miss the birds chirping. We miss the butterflies and the flowers blooming. We miss the leaves falling in fall. We miss the dark wintry seasons. We miss it because we're so busy focused on some destination that is not going to satisfy us. And it's like the biggest game that all of us, most of us have bought into. And we have to start looking and asking, like, how's this working for us? Because especially in American culture, westernized culture, it's not. Everybody's stressed out. Stress is the number one cause of illness, of all illnesses. Everyone's like addicted to something, whether it's technology, porn, drugs, whatever. We're looking for ways to escape a reality that we bought into. And it's like, we bought into this. You can buy out of it too. You can leave, exit the matrix and be like, I'm not going to play this game anymore. Thank you very much. It's been fun. I've learned my lessons and time to try something else.
You can choose to arrive. That's the thing. It's like we'll never arrive until we choose that it is done. Here and now, I've arrived. Done. I declare it.
Yes.
Period. Finito. Because otherwise, what we're doing is constantly chasing that target that always moves. The target always moves a little further and a little further and a little further so that we can never be satisfied. Because the baseline story that's running the show is that. Is one of dissatisfaction, is one of I am not worthy of feeling fulfilled. It's never enough. I am not enough. So we keep replaying these stories that get in the way of everything, right? Like another example is marriage. Everybody's like, and I've known so many women that all they want is the ring.
Oh my God.
All they want is the ring. The ring. Then you get the ring. It's almost like, okay, when I get the ring, then I'll be happy. But then marriage comes in.
That's what I'm like, because like, listen,
and then the work is
I am married, okay? And I'm on my second marriage to the same person, right? Like real talk. And we didn't get divorced, but we essentially buried our first relationship because That's what happens. Like if you're with somebody long enough, true story, if you're with somebody long enough and you're being honest and you're being real, you are going to have to meet a new version of that person at least every 5 to 10 years, at least. Because if you're evolving, which we all do, human beings grow and evolve just like all of nature does, you're going to meet a new person. Yeah. And you have to keep constantly re-choosing that person or not. And that new version of your partner is going to mirror a new version of yourself. And you're going to have to figure out how you co-create and co-live and do all the things together called life. And so many people just think, once you get the ring, it's great. Once you have the baby, then it's great. I'm like, no. That's when it starts. That's when the real work starts, because now there's something so big at stake. Yeah. Like there's something so big at stake. When you said yes to being with somebody forever, right? The construct of marriage. Now there's something so massive at stake. It's not just a boyfriend or a girlfriend that you can be like, all right, this isn't working for me, I'm out, right? When you have kids, something big is at stake. And when you have such big stakes and you play such a big game, it requires more of you. And life is going to go, okay, we're requiring more of you to parent. So let's work on this stuff that you haven't looked at since you were 5. Let's look at this stuff that you haven't looked at since you were 15. And you just keep getting handed opportunities to evolve and grow.
Absolutely. And this is why working on connecting to the wisdom of our bodies is so important, because in our heads, we relate to the person that we thought we knew. We relate to the person that was when we first started dating or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. We're not able to meet the present moment from our heads, because there are so many meanings and interpretations and ideas and so much desire to control and strategize our way around everything that we can't meet reality as is in the here and now. So when we want to really show up powerfully in partnership, when we want to show up powerfully in business, when we want to show up powerfully in leadership, in motherhood, and of course I speak without being a mom myself, but what I see so many of my friends having kids, those that can do it powerfully and from their dignity and from spaciousness and grace are those that are connected to the wisdom of their bodies, that are not leading from, what did the book say I should do? Right. What does my 10-year plan strategy that I did with my business coach says? Yeah. No, actually, what do I feel in this moment? This is something that I never thought I could meet, but now it's here. So how do I meet it? And how do I meet it with grace? And how do I meet it remaining available to it? Yeah. So this is something that, it's why I'm so passionate about this work, and I know you are too, of embodiment, and why I love what you're teaching with the Muse. It's because we get to reconnect to that part of ourselves that is inherently wise, because it tunes into something that is beyond what we can ever strategize and plan in our heads. Yes. But while we're resisting that, so that we can hold on to what we've told ourselves is safe, what we've told ourselves will bring us the satisfaction, the fulfillment, the approval, the love that we desire, even though we have more than enough proof that it's never enough. Yeah. When we try to grasp onto this and attach to it, we're actually disconnecting from our true power and the power to meet life with everything that it brings, with grace and with wisdom and with presence and authenticity. So this is why and I'd love to hear more about what your journey was like, where some of the practices that you brought in and all of that, so that the listeners can really start to tune into how do we reconnect to the wisdom of our bodies.
It's huge. Before I share that, and I will, just something, it came up for me on that as you were speaking about how, we never feel like it's enough. It's because we've externalized our worthiness out here, right? Like we're constantly hooked into, once I have the relationship, then I'll feel worthy. Once I have the money, then I'll feel worthy. Once I have success, then I'll feel worthy. And so it's never enough because we haven't filled up the well within ourselves. Yeah. And so the journey of the Muse, the journey to coming back home is filling that well within ourselves and coming back to self as source, right? And again, the self that is the Muse is the self that is us, but it's also the self that is us that is connected to something bigger than us, creator, source, God, whatever you want to call it, spirit. But this is the thing, right? So when we're connected to this and we're holding this versus in our head, you said something that I hear so many people say, well, what does a good parenting book say I should do?
Right.
What does my coach say I should do? What does the relationship book say I should do? And we're leading from, hey, I'm going to give you my power. I'm going to externalize my power. Like, you've got a better idea of what's right for me than I do. And we play this right-wrong game. I'm trying to get it right so I don't get it wrong. I'm trying to be good so I'm not bad. I'm trying to be happy so I'm not sad. We're constantly playing the game of right and wrong. And what happens is we just keep deferring out. Can you tell me how I should live my life? Can you tell me how I should live my life? And then we're constantly not trusting ourselves because we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to source our own wisdom. Absolutely. And so when we come back to ourselves, when we come back to our body, when we recognize ourselves as the source of everything, we then stop deferring out. We then stop living in our heads and the anxiety of trying to get it right and avoiding wrong. And we just lean into, like, what's true for me in this moment? What's most useful for me in this moment? What's most effective for me in this moment? And it might change in the next moment, and that's okay. But when we are the source of our rightness and our truth in the moment, it relieves all this pressure. It takes off the whole strategizing, improving, and pleasing, and all this posturing, because it's just like, I am the source of my own rightness.
Yeah.
I've got me. And so some of the practices I've used is, learning about the nervous system. Like, yes, I am a nerd.
Please, everyone.
Like, it should be taught in schools, because
Absolutely.
it is the thing that runs us. And of course it hasn't really been popularized till now. And even now we're in the space, so it's getting popular in our space. But most people are like, your nervous system, what do you mean? You know, it's like, what does it have to do with anything? It's like, it has everything to do with everything. Because when our nervous system feels like there's a threat, we literally are living our lives from a hypervigilant state where we are scanning our environment nonstop for threats. And so, you know, we could literally be making a monster out of a shadow in our bedroom, right? And that's what I used to do as a kid. It's like we turn shadows into monsters. And that's what most of us are doing all of our lives. It's our own shadow, and we're turning it into a monster in our life because of our hypervigilant state. We're constantly running on survival because our nervous system hasn't gotten the cue that it's safe to relax and regulate. So that's number one. Number two, movement practice. Yes. Why do I say movement? You know, people think dance. It's not dance. It's movement. It's embodied movement. It's flow movement. It's nonlinear movement. It is moving the body as the body wants to move, to different music, to stories, to whatever. I mean, you could move in silence. But we move our bodies because our bodies need to move to express, right? They need to move to express. And when we're in that movement, we bypass the linear brain. We bypass the story of like, oh, well, I'm just not that type of person. Well, maybe your body says differently. Let's see how if your body can move in that way that you just think you're not that type of person. And that happened for me. I had a couple movement practices with friends of mine where I was like, whoa, like my body just bypassed all the stories I had about myself, all the stories about what I'm into and not into. And it just went right there. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. And it allowed me to have this embodied experience, an experience in my body that bypassed the story I've been telling about myself for decades. And in one moment, I flipped the script. Why? Because now I have a practiced experience that lives in my body, that something else is true, right? And so movement practices, so key. Community, especially for women, but men too, but I'll speak for women. Yeah. We thrive in community. All of the indigenous cultures sat in circle as women, and we communed, we talked, we shared wisdom, we connected with each other, we put our hearts into the fire and said, hold this with me, right? And we don't have that anymore because we live in this society where we're like living in these nuclear families and solo structures of like, you live in this apartment, you live in this apartment, and we're so distanced from true intimacy. And when we do have sisterhood, it's like, oh, I'm going to tell you just enough to keep myself safe because I don't want you to judge me, or I don't want you to use it against me because you might. And it's not real. There's no depth to it. And so I think as women, it's our responsibility to create that. For some of you, I grew up in a small town, so I get like the whole small town thing. It's a thing. But the internet exists. Like, find communities of women that are speaking your language, that are wanting and committing and intentionalizing the same type of life that you are. Like, that is so important. For me, I recognize how I'm Miss Independent, all the things, I can do all the things by myself, lone wolf, like I can solve all the problems. I know the work. I just apply the work. I don't want to be a burden to anybody. That was my story. And so that story kept me very closed off from other people. And I could be the savior. I could be the hero. I could help them. I could be the one that, they come to for advice. But they never felt like they could hold me because I wasn't really offering much to them. It's like, oh, well, I got it. But until I had my big life rupture, my big implosion of everything in my relationship with my husband, it's like, at that point, I was like, okay, it's time to let people in. And I just started letting people in and reaching out. And it was such good medicine for me, like such good medicine, because not only did I realize how held I am and how much my community like loves me, but also how nourishing it is to be held high when life is hard. And I think so many of us go into like shame spirals when life gets hard. It's like, oh, I don't want to share this with anybody. It's so scary. But if we just open instead of close and collapse, it creates so many more options for us. So those I would say are my top 3. There's a million other things like boundaries and learning the art of influence and tapping into our desires and reawakening our sensuality and like there's a million things, but those are my top 3.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And in terms of the community, I feel like this is so important because we need this as women. We need this as humans, period. But we need this, we're speaking to the women right now. We need this as women. And yet all of us carry so many sisterhood wounds. We have so many wounds with the feminine that unless we put ourselves in spaces and containers with other women where we are invited and guided to be vulnerable, to open up about things that we are not used to opening up about. Unless we practice asking for support and practice being held by others, we can't really heal those wounds. The Miss Independent, strong one, like we have that in common, been there than that. I know that very well. So practiced in that. And that archetype or that mask loves to think that we can heal things by ourselves. That we can heal things on our own. So I'll just take care of it so that I'm not a burden to anyone, so that I can't risk being rejected again, or shamed again, or whatever story we have.
Total lack of intimacy.
Exactly. So I'll just do it myself. But what's happening with that is that we get to remember that we are relational beings. So there are wounds that we cannot heal outside of relationship. For all of us, I'm not necessarily an avoidant attached person, but for all of the avoidants out there, there's this story that we love to believe that we can heal outside of relationship. But in reality, the wounds that were created in relationship can only be healed in relationship.
That's right.
So it doesn't mean that you need to heal those wounds with the same person that activated or triggered those things in the first place. But we get to heal in relationship to other humans. We cannot do it alone.
Yes, which it just makes me laugh because I hear that and I think of so many people I know that are like, I'm waiting to get into partnership until I've healed this aspect of myself. I'm like, no.
To heal completely before I can have a partner, I'm like, good luck.
Well, actually, so you might think you healed all of it and then you'll get into relationship and then it'll actually get tested. Because if you're healing in a silo by yourself, a relational wound, as you're saying, you cannot heal it outside of being in intimate partnership. You cannot heal it if there's nothing at stake intimately. That's why we have relationships. Relationships are these beautiful testing grounds to test all the work you've ever done on yourself. That's why I think it's Ram Dass who says, if you think you're enlightened, go home and spend a weekend with your family. So true. Like you think you got all the tools and you're so spiritual and all the things, like go be with the people who trigger you the most. If you cannot be enlightened and spiritual and all the things with them and show them grace and compassion, you got more work to do. And we always have more work to do. But specifically, that's where the work gets tested, is in relationship with other humans.
Yeah, absolutely. A conversation that I hear a lot of women having, I know that it shows up a lot for my clients at times, is, well, okay, so I want to open up, but then does that mean that I need to open up to everyone? Because I don't feel safe with everyone. It's not that everybody can hold me. It's not that everybody, I don't want, and I have said this thing myself many times, I don't want everyone's advice. And it's true. I am the space for feedback. I'm the space for advice, but not from everyone. Nope. I'm actually not interested in having advice from everyone. Exactly.
You shouldn't be.
So it's a conversation of, it's not an either or, almost like, okay, I work on myself, I tune into the wisdom of my body, I reconnect with myself, and then I throw it all out of the window to go and relate to people. That's not how it works. I know that a lot of people have this conversation of either or.
Yeah.
To me, it's a matter of, can you reconnect to yourself? Can you become really familiar with your body's cues, with your inner wisdom, so that you know when something is actually aligned for you and when it's not? Can you create space in your body somatically so that you are not projecting the past into this present moment, so that you are not making monsters out of other people's shadows as well?
Yeah.
And then from that space, can you discern and choose some people, some scenarios where you want to start practicing opening up? Because sometimes when we have the story that I'm not going to be held, I'm not going to be accepted, I'm not going to be supported, I'm not going to be whatever, we call in scenarios just to reaffirm that story.
Exactly like that.
Right? So it's like, I have a wound that I was not emotionally held. So I'm going to find the most emotionally unavailable person that has the most fear around emotions. And I'm going to dump all of my stuff in them. And if they don't hold it, I'll reaffirm the story. See, I tried.
I tried. I did the thing, but it didn't work. I told you it wouldn't work.
I'm right. Exactly. So it's a matter of discerning. Can you be in your body also when you are relating to others? This, I feel, is like step 2, right? Step 1 is, can we reconnect to ourselves? Can we come back and tune back to the wisdom of our bodies? Can we learn to trust ourselves and our cues? Can we create the space to be here now and not back then when I was 5 projecting it as to now? And then step 2, can I keep this with me when relating to other humans? And 100%. This is when it gets really juicy and really interesting.
Yeah, and this is where, boundaries come in. And it's to me, it's the internal masculine that has your back and is holding the container, is holding your field, right? And then the inner feminine, once she feels that inner masculine holding and saying, like, no matter what shows up, we can attract the most toxic person, but I got my back. Like, we're only going to let it get so far, right? So when the inner feminine feels that, she's like, oh, it's safe to open. It's safe to open because I feel held. And so most of us are operating from this inner masculine that's a shadow, which is like control everything. If I can control your behavior, if I control the way you show up, if I control what you say, if I control what you do, then I'm safe. Okay, now my inner feminine can come out and play. But then the inner feminine that's a shadow comes out, which is like full collapse of our needs. Of like, my needs don't matter. You can walk all over me, whatever you want. Doesn't, And then our essence, full collapse of our essence, we become the person that we think is going to keep the person that we want, right? So I was having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and she was, posturing in a way, totally unconsciously, with this guy she was dating. She was doing all these things to try and be like the cool girl and the easy girl and like the fun girl and like the girl that like he can't stop thinking about because she's so awesome and easygoing. But really, I'm like, well, what's true for you? She's like, I'm really hurt because he hasn't responded like after this thing. And I'm like, okay, so what's the version of you that wants to be the cool girl? Like, what does she want to do? I just want to leave it and I'll let him reach out to me whenever. I'm like, okay, what's your truth want to do? Like, what if your inner masculine had your back? Like, what would you do? I would reach out to him in a way that lets him know how I feel. And I'm like, great, you can do it with love. And you can do it in a way that's not projecting to him. And we had to work the text like 20 times. I'm like, it's still a projection. It's still assuming his behavior is X, Y, and Z. I'm like, what is true for you? And she eventually said, I'm reaching out because I recognize that I desire a different level of attention from you that I'm not receiving right now. And it's all good. But based on what I know I desire, I'm holding space for that. So I'm going to separate this connection. And she felt so liberated when she did that. And she felt so confident. I'm like, fucking thank God I had my own back. And I was talking to her and I'm like, imagine if you played the cool girl game.
Yeah.
Like, imagine now you're 5 months down the line and you're still playing that game because God forbid, if he sees how you truly feel, he might not think you're cool anymore. Now, most of us are playing this in our lives. And I did this too. Like, I did this with my husband, right? Like,
same.
We all fucking do this. And we do this. We play this game of like, unconsciously, who do I need to be to keep the person that I love? And so we posture and we flex and we position and we please and we do all these things, which essentially is a collapse of our true essence. It's a collapse of our truth, our dignity. And so we're collapsing into these shadow masculine and feminine versions of ourselves, doing this dance, hoping to keep someone's attention. Meanwhile, we're never fully feeling secure in that relationship because they've never seen our truth. because we've never actually given them the opportunity to see it, because we're so afraid. If they see my truth, they're not going to love me. If they see my truth, they're going to judge me. They're going to leave me. They're going to betray me. They're going to abandon me. And we have all these stories. And so we create these relationships that are just two masks, two identities, just dancing for each other, with each other, trying to stay safe and placate and control, when really we're not relating to the truth of each other at all. We're relating to a version of ourselves that we have put in position to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do this so often, trying to run away from certain emotions that we've deemed as scary and bad and wrong. And I find it takes so much more energy to do that than to actually just feel whatever it is, right? So we think, okay, if I play the cool girl, if I play the strong one, if I play the I have it all together, if I perfection everything to a T, then I won't have to experience X. I won't have to experience Y. I won't have to experience Z. And we do this running away from certain things that actually, when we're in them, are like way less bad than all of the energy and all of the overthinking and all of the attention that we've put into running away from those things. I remember actually, I can't remember if it was Breach or Extreme, but for those of you listening, Alexi co-hosts with her husband Preston these incredible workshops called Breach and Extreme Leadership. And I did them. I took these workshops years ago as a student, and then I went ahead and started coaching them and supporting them in this. And so we were finishing one of those, and I forget which one. But anyways, I was appointed in Australia to be the team captain, the leader. And I found out the day before we started. And my father had just passed away like 2 or 3 weeks before. So I arrived to Australia knowing that I'm here to coach and like support and Breach. And then all of a sudden I get told, oh, you're going to be the team captain. So you're coaching and supporting the coaches that are supporting the people, and then making sure that all of the back end stuff is ready and done and all of that. Okay, cool. So I'm dealing with the grief that I'm going through. There's a lot, to that shocking experience in the middle of the grief with my dad, like big things, right? And then this gets put on my plate. Like, okay, awesome. So we're doing this, right? And throughout the weekend, many more things happen, right? Like relationship stuff and life stuff and people and their wounded ego stuff. Like stuff shows up like it does all of the time. And I remember at the end of one of the 2 weekends, someone, I think it was Preston, that asked me, what was your biggest takeaway? What was your biggest takeaway from the weekend? And I said, just the experience of the width of my range. The fact that I could be first thing in the morning crying in absolute grief for the loss of my father, and literally 2 minutes later seeing the time and being like, okay, now goal line, let's get this done, let's get it, and literally managing all of the coaches, all of the things to get it done. And then in full presence with everybody's process and everybody that was there as a student. And then in the break, asking someone like, can I get a hug? I just want a hug right now. And then being super playful and super like excited and making sure that everybody's like feeling up in their energy and that we're all like pumped for what we're doing. And then back to the grief and then back to the presence and then back to the organization. And it was so awesome for me to be reminded of once again that the work really does work. And this is what we do it for. Oftentimes when we're not really having a nervous system based or a somatic based approach, we think that we do the work so that we can get smarter and we can have cooler things to say.
We can control life more.
Exactly. So we just want to have the cool thing to say or meet the person that's going to make us feel and look cool or whatever stories, right? Make more money. But this is really why we do it. So coming back to what we were talking about at the start of this conversation, this is why we connect with the Muse. This is why we listen to her, why we hear her. I can speak just from my experience, obviously, without being a part of your container. But from my experience, this is why we listen to the Muse. It's not so that we can achieve more outside. It's so that we can keep meeting life more fully. Because life is going to life.
100%.
I wasn't planning on my father dying. No. I wasn't planning on being a team captain for that. I wasn't planning on any of those things. And yet those things presented themselves. So I open myself to receive those things. I become available to those things. And then I meet them in the moment. And the power that we can access within ourselves when we're really remaining available to life, when we're not longer fighting and trying to be the cool one, the strong one, the has it all together, the perfect one, but rather the one that's here with a big exhale. Like the one that's like, okay, so these two I can handle.
Because
these two I can be
is
with.
Life.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, like people think that the bad stuff is like somehow only them. It's not. Like wake up call, it's all of us. Exactly. Right? Like I was listening to something and I forget who it was, but he said, it was Francis, why am I forgetting his name? For the grief guy. Francis Weller, I think. Yeah. I'm forgetting it. I'm messing it up. But anyway, he was talking about life is only going to end in heartache. Only. Love is only going to end in heartache, because he said, even if you love and you love for a lifetime and you stay together till the very end, someone's going to die.
Exactly.
And it's like life is inherently all experience. It's joy, it's pain, it's suffering, it's magic, it's dance, it's on the bathroom floor curled over crying. It's all of it. It's a spectrum. And we do this work so that we can hold all of life and show up to life in our dignity. Right? Like when things are going great, we can actually receive the greatness of life. We can receive the pleasure of life. I can't even tell you for how many years. I mean, it's pretty much my whole life. It's like good things would happen. It's like, yeah, okay, next. And it's like, I wouldn't even let it land. Like, let it land. Let it permeate. Let it marinate in your cells. Like really, I had a moment with Zizi last night. We were out in the backyard. You were there with us. Zizi's my daughter. And her and I were sitting on this big egg chair I have, and she's just looking at me and climbing up on the thing and coming in and looking at me. And I just had this moment where I'm like, let this really in, like really. And I just felt so much joy, so much gratitude. And I was just looking at her face and how perfect she is. And it was like, oh, this is so good. And truthfully, I don't know if I would have been able to experience and let all of that in if I hadn't been willing to let in all the pain and like the hardship too, because it's a hose, right? It's a hose. And if we're kinking the hose on pain, we're kinking the hose on pleasure, right? And we have to be available for all of it to get all of it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually writing a few lessons that I got from my father last night for an episode that I want to record. And one of the things that I wrote, I forget how I wrote it, but I was speaking about like everything is welcome. Like he welcomed all of him. And I was thinking about this, like he was a huge hedonist, like everything, pleasure, beauty, smells, food, flavors, everything, comfort, luxury, bring it in. And he also just welcomed frustration and anger. Like he had a temper. He would never hold a grudge, never be angry at people for any too long period. But in the moment, he would be like, like in the moment, just like let it all out. Never in a projecting way or like in an aggressive way, but just in himself. Like he was all of him. And he didn't care people seeing him like that. Like he could be publicly expressing that. But 2 minutes later, he was publicly expressing how amazing the fact that they put like a fraction of a gram of this spice on this dish was, right?
I would have loved your dad. For
yes,
sure.
You would have adored him. So I was thinking of this. I was thinking of like, wow, there's all of the ways in which I know I have, and this has been a journey for me to allow more of me out, because I had all of these stories about this is not safe. This is not like this. I just keep for me, this only for my very inner circle, all of that. And then I was reflecting on these lessons and I was thinking, wow, he could experience so much pleasure in the mundane. He saw so much beauty and art in the simplest things. But he also allowed everything else out. All of it. He could just get frustrated without an issue. He could like just whatever without an issue.
Because he was available for all of it.
Exactly.
So good.
And this is something that we get to understand when we're running away from those aspects of ourselves, whether because we've told ourselves that those are scary things, that maybe we don't trust ourselves to know how to handle them. Maybe because we've been told that we won't be loved in that expression, that we won't be accepted or belong or fit in or be able to be successful and have whatever it is, whatever stories we've told ourselves. The truth is, and this is something that I keep reminding myself of and keeps landing for me so often, it's that I'm here to live my life. Like I'm here to experience life. This is my only job. Everything else, how I choose to dress, who I choose to be friends with, whether I have a partnership or not, how that partnership works, where I live, what things I own, how much money I make, what I achieve. Like all of those is just part of the game, like pieces of the game that I keep adding, you know, like thinking back to the days where people used to play, I never played it, but that Sims game. Where like you created someone's life on the computer. I'm like, this is literally it. Like you can choose what car and what clothes and whatever. Exactly. You're choosing your own adventure. But that's it. Like those are all just blocks and things that we add on top of it. But what we're here for, in my opinion, I'm here to experience my aliveness. I'm here to experience life. Everything else is just something else.
Well, and that's
that I put in my life.
That's it. And so many people, again, they think that they're here to get the money or the success or the security or the family or whatever. And all of that is a part of it if you choose to have that be a part of it. But the truth is your only job is to live. Like I say this all the time in Bridge. It's like your heart is beating and asking only one thing of you: live. It asks nothing else of you, right? Like it beats nonstop. We don't even have to think about it, right? We torture our heart. We do all these horrible things to our heart and our bodies, and our body keeps going. And the only request it has is to fucking live your life, like be alive. But so many people are so not even present with the now moment. Because when they're washing the dishes, they're in their emails. When they're with their partner, they're in their work. When they're with their friends, they're thinking about something else. And we're never where we actually are. And until we can find pleasure and pain and everything in between in the now moment, just being with what's here. Like your dad. Like your dad was just with what was here. Whatever was presenting, he was a yes to it. Until we can do it in the mundane moments, we're not going to be able to do it in the big moments. And we've all fucking lied to ourselves thinking that, oh no, once I make $1 million, then I'll be able to feel joy. No, you won't. You'll get there, you'll feel it for 2 seconds, and then you'll want more. And it's really a practice that we have to practice while doing the dishes, while doing the laundry, while playing with our kids, while in an argument with our partner. Like that is when we have to go, fuck, I'm alive. Like I am alive. What a gift to experience the spectrum of my humanity. Like, what a fucking gift. And everything else is art. And how do I want to fucking paint this canvas? How do I want to make the money? How do I want to wear the clothes and express and adorn my beauty? Like all of that's art, and fucking yes to art. And your only real job is to live.
Yes. And I really want this to land for people. We can't pick and choose. We can't go, okay, so I'm going to feel joy and pleasure and I'm going to be a multi-orgasmic woman having the most amazing time everywhere I go. But I am not going to go into frustration.
No.
Don't talk to me about anger.
No.
Don't talk to me about grief.
I'm not an angry person.
I'm not an angry person. I don't feel those. I'm just a really peaceful person. I told myself that story. When I was a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, I was like, no, this is not peaceful enough. But really, it's either all or nothing with this. It really is. So I really want this to land for people listening. If you want to experience life, you got to say yes to all of it. You got to say yes to the Muse in all of the ways. Because the Muse, again, bringing it back to the start of this conversation, when the Muse inspired Shakespeare, when the Muse inspired so many other amazing writers and songwriters and poets and all of those, the Muse a lot of the times inspired stories of heartbreak.
100%.
It inspired stories of death. It inspired stories of Great Depression. It didn't only inspire stories of joy and pleasure and fun. So the more we close ourselves off to the quote unquote uncomfortable feelings, that again, I got to say, there's nothing uncomfortable about feeling grief. Like actually I'm in it right now and I will add this to the conversation. There's nothing uncomfortable about grief.
Yeah.
You're just in it.
Yes.
And a moment it hits you and you feel it.
You got to ride the wave.
And you ride the wave. Like
That's
this is my experience, at least currently. And it doesn't mean that I didn't care. It doesn't mean like my father was hands down one of my favorite humans in the entire world. Like in the entire world. Yeah. So I didn't just lose a father. I lost one of my best friends. Yeah. One of my favorite people. And yet with all of that care, with all of that passion, with all of that love, there's nothing uncomfortable about grief. It's just yes.
It just is.
When I say yes to it, it's uncomfortable when I'm telling myself this story that I cannot speak about my father anymore because it's already been 2 months. It was 2 months yesterday. So when I tell myself this story, like, it's been 2 months, people are kind of over hearing about your father. Don't talk to your friends. Like, this has come up with me and Alexi, that sometimes things come up and I notice the discomfort of, is it okay that I still speak about this? Is it okay that this is still moving stuff in me? That is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So is it okay that I don't feel so cool even though I want to be a cool girl?
Right.
Is it okay that I feel frustration even though I tell myself that I'm not an angry person? Yes. That is uncomfortable. But feeling it, being in it, having a scream, kicking some pillars, crying, there's nothing uncomfortable about it.
And it moves quick. Like when you ride the wave, it moves quick. You ride it, it peaks up, and then silence. Exactly. And you have that peacefulness after you allow the wave to do its wave thing. Yeah. But most people are in resistance to the wave. They're literally like, if you can imagine an ocean with waves crashing, it's like they have a huge glass panel. They're pushing against the wave, pushing against it. Like, no, it's not the right time for the wave. No, it's not, this isn't appropriate for the wave. No, good girls don't have this type of wave. And so we're pushing with this massive glass panel. That is so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It's the resistance to what is. And I think about so many women I know that when you ask them, like, how are you? And you can tell. And like, I'm a somatic coach. I can read someone's body. The body never lies. And you can tell everything's not right now. Mm-hmm. Everything's off. And they're like, yeah, everything's really good. I'm like, bullshit, And it's like, stop lying to yourself. Yes. We have to stop lying to ourselves in order to make any progress. We have to remove the glass and let the wave fucking crash and do it responsibly. Do it in your dignity. Do it from your honor and not making somebody else the villain. But when you let it crash, you get everything you need. There's a medicine in that crash. Mm-hmm. And that's the purpose of our emotions. It's medicine for us. It's a clearing for us to clear and open more space so we're available for more life. And that's what we need to do. Stop lying to ourselves and allow our bodies to do what they are made to do, which is move energy up and out to create more room and space.
Yeah. And this is why bringing it back to the community is so important, to get yourself in containers where that is the new normal, when that is allowed, not only allowed, but encouraged and called forth, celebrated. Yes. Exactly. Like I think back to, was it like a couple of months ago, Alexi and I co-hosted a retreat called Wild in Australia, in Byron Bay. And it was just a 1-day retreat, but we went so deep with the women in there. Deep. And it was so powerful to see women that had never allowed certain aspects of themselves out, experience aspects of themselves somatically because of the context of the room. Yeah. Because in the room, it was not only allowed, but Alexi and I were encouraging and celebrating and guiding them to those openings so that you could, or the women in there could experience how it is to be connected to our wild animal, connected to the part of us that doesn't have all of this strategizing and all of the stories about this is allowed, this is not, this is safe, this is not, but it's just being. It's just a yes to life. It's just a yes with life. Right. So it was really powerful in this particular container, but every single container that we hold separately, together, whatever, there's this invitation for women to experience themselves in a way that they haven't yet because they haven't had the context to.
That's right.
So put yourself, like whatever you do, whether it's with Alexi and Em in their amazing container, which I'd love to hear more about in a second, whether it is through whenever we do Wild again or any of my containers, anybody else's containers. Yeah. But find yourself a container where the context is one where all of you is allowed. Permission. So that you can start to experience your yes to life and reconnect to your muse in whatever way that is for you.
Yes, so big, so big. That to me is a game changer because most of us were not modeled how to do it. And we are literally living in a system where the patriarchal structure is starting to be questioned and starting to collapse. And we were all brought up in a structure of the patriarchy. And so we can't even see what's truly ours because so much of it is somebody else's, right? So we have to do the work of getting around people that are permission slips for truth and doing the work to inspire us deeper into our own.
Yes. Love, love, love this. Okay. So I would love to hear, firstly, what is your one piece of advice, reminder, tip, takeaway, something that you want to leave the listeners with to start reconnecting with their muse?
The biggest thing is you're already there. Like, stop thinking it's something outside of yourself. Stop thinking you have to dress away to be more feminine, or pleasure is in the bedroom, or what. Like, it's in you. You are the source of your own power. And when you truly come back home to yourself, not in a performative feminine embodiment way, but in a like true depth of your power and truth, you're unstoppable. And you carry yourself differently in the world. And the world is inherently different because of how you show up to it.
I love that. Yes to that. And what first, actually, let's go into, tell me please, in what ways people can work with you currently, this year, next year. How can people find you, connect, and receive from you?
Well, I'm most active on Instagram, so find me there for social media. Awakenthemuse.com if you're interested. We'll put a wait list up. We are entering into a new container. We'll have one in the fall. And then Bridge Experience. The Bridge Experience, hands down, get in that room. It is embodiment training. It is nervous system training. We go where no other personal development embodiment workshop goes. We press the boundaries of it, and we know it's the best in the world. So get in that room. We've got Austin dates in October. We've got Australia dates probably in January, Feb of 2024. Make it happen. Get there. And then, of course, if you want to learn these tools and be a coach or deepen your coaching practice, Elementum Coaching Institute, we train coaches on nervous system work, somatics, how to be trauma-informed, sexuality, masculine and feminine dynamics, money. I mean, we go into all the things.
Yeah, amazing. I'm going to leave all of the links for all of this in there. And last but not least, I would love to hear, what does it mean to you to let her lead?
Again, my hers is who I call my muse. So to let her lead means to live for my truth. And what's interesting, what comes up around that is like full fuck yes, fully myself, fully expressed, and bumping up against the edges of society. Because I know that when I let her lead, she's leading in a world that doesn't necessarily want her there. And so I'm here for it.
Yes. Absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, love, for being here, for all of your wisdom, your aliveness, your muse, the muse that you are for so many people, including myself. Thank you for being here. I love you so much, and I'm so excited to see what this conversation creates for the people that gets to tune in.
Yes, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and that it landed for you in a valuable way. If you want more of this content, be sure to subscribe so you get notified when new episodes are released. And since you're already here, if you want to leave us a rating and a review, that would be so deeply appreciated. You can also find me on Instagram at Sigrid Tasies for more free, transformational, and inspirational content. And if you want to receive updates on all of the different things, offers, events, free resources that we have for you, then come and join my inner circle. Go to sigridtasies.com/inner circle and subscribe over there. I will leave all of the links in the show notes for you, and I will connect with you on the next episode. Lots of love.